Hello everyone, welcome to our session entitled The Future of the Living Room. My name is Alex Danlow. I'm going to be moderating today. I have Majd Bakar and John Affaki here. They're both Directors of Engineering for Chromecast and Google Cast. So feel free to interrupt anytime with questions. There's a microphone over here on the right-hand side, so if you just want to get up and ask us questions. So I just wanted to start with just a little bit of scene setting. So if you remember in the keynote this morning, Timothy talked about the living room of the future and that things will just kind of disappear into the background. So one of the products these guys have been responsible for is, of course, Google Cast and Chromecast, which disappears behind the TV set. So it's kind of this seamless thing that you don't actually see, but you get to access from your phone. So maybe we could start with, where did that actually come about? I mean, what was the idea originally?
So our goal from Chromecast was to bring as much content into the living room, the new living room, with the phone being the center of the digital life. The new remote control, I think there's echo. The new remote control for the living room. People are, especially millennials, they are tied to their phones and mobile devices, and they have their whole digital life there. So what's better than to take that experience from the phone and just amplify it, project it to a larger screen or to a larger speaker or to other devices, and have that living room experience be more emerging and engaging with the user. As part of the living room, Google's vision is there is this people that are very mobile focused, and they are always on the go. They are tied to that user experience, and this is where Google Cast and Chromecast come about. But we are also having Android TV, where for a more traditional experience with a first screen UI and using a D-pad remote control, you can navigate very exciting UI and compelling experiences. And Google is investing heavily on both sides. We provide both platforms for you as developers to bring your experiences to the living room.
Yeah, and as Majd gave the really compelling consumer story, but one of the things that we also wanted to do with both Cast and Android TV was really for application developers to make it a very seamless development environment, something that you're used to developing at this point for the mobile users, people who are either playing games on the go or watching media on the go, using the same development model to extend to all of your device, whether again it's Cast where you're using your Android app, your iOS app, to Cast, and really it's an extension of it, or you're using your very similar Android application to run directly on Android TV. So we wanted to make it a little bit of the best of the both worlds, both for the developers and as well as for the consumers. So that's where both the...
Got it. And of course, like if you, as a developer, if you're adding Google Cast capability to your app, whether it's iOS or Android, whatever, I mean, that works on Android TV as well. So it's kind of like Android TV in some ways is a superset of a simple device like the Chromecast, but then Google Cast itself is spreading to all other devices because we have Cast Audio as well, which is of course a great way to send sound around the house if you have a media app, if you're playing music or whatever. And we've also introduced multi-room audio, so if you have multiple Cast devices, they can play in perfect sync, which is a really neat feature from a developer's point of view. So how many developers out here have had any experience with developing Cast applications? A few? That's nice, good.
What about Android TV? All right.
I think that's good.
Not
Nice
much
balance.
overlap actually, in terms of kind of interesting.
That is interesting. So, so as a developer, what would you say would be the strengths of one of the platforms over the other? I mean, we're doing the two platforms; they have different characteristics. So, where do you see different types of application fitting with the two models?
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say that there's one that is more powerful than the other, but it's more you are targeting different interaction model, which might result in a different user. I would say younger users, they would like to have that feeling of the phone. They like to navigate a list of songs or playing a game using their phone. Other people, other users might be more interested in just lean back and having the remote control with physical buttons to navigate a shorter list.
Yeah, I think if it really depends on the type of application. If you're going to be very input heavy, generally speaking, whether it's search or actually entering text, your phone is a much better controller, and at that point, developing for Cast is a much better interaction model for the user because the touchscreen keyboard is generally much more interesting to use than either a D-pad remote where you can enter passwords on the screen or whatnot. So you've got that type of user. And as Maj said, I think anybody who's dealing with lean back, generally speaking, likes to have a much more responsive experience with the remote, or simple, where they don't want to look down, they don't want to turn on the phone. So I think it really depends on the applications. I think you've also got applications which work in both of the worlds, which is, you're starting something maybe on the bus or the train on the way back home. When you get home, you just want to click a button and continue that same experience without actually relaunching an application. And that you can't really do in say, the Android TV world, but you can do in Cast, and that you're really extending your existing experience onto the TV. So they both have very strong experiences, but they're a little bit different.
Yeah, one thing also with the platforms that in recent times, there's talk of the GPU power on devices like the Cast device and the Android TV device, and generally the GPU is more powerful on the Android TV device versus a Chromecast. So if you have an existing Android app, extending it to Android TV is natural, and you'll get more GPU power. But of course, we've introduced the Remote Display API, which I might get John to explain. Basically, this is how you get to use the GPU on your phone, but have Cast act as a secondary display. So can you talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, essentially the Cast model, if you guys aren't that familiar with, a few of you that are, is that there's two parts to your application. You've got one part that's running on your mobile device, and essentially it's your Android, iOS, or web application that's running in Chrome. And then you have part of the application that's running within directly the Cast device, and that's an HTML5 application. Now with Cast, we've never essentially, we focused on reach with Chromecast and getting the device to as many people out there as possible with a very low price point, which means we've never had, 980 GPU in there. We've never had anything great as far as power, because its main purpose was to stream video. But games on there games with Cast have actually been doing very well, because again, if you're thinking about us extending the reach of the mobile applications to the TV, mobile gaming is huge, in case you haven't noticed. And so we really wanted to be able to extend that experience to the TV. But the GPU was very limiting, and so one of the things that we've really looked at is actually using the GPU that's on your phone and having you be able to build your game natively for Android or iOS, but render to a second screen, or basically a virtual display, and stream that to the TV. And that's actually worked really well. If you take a look, and I think Khaled is giving a talk a little bit later about this, where we can actually get really high action games going, where you can have really great rendering if you're looking at the high end, or actually even mid-end Android devices and iOS devices, will actually allow you to deal with really great graphics. And we can get very good latency within the living room, so that you can't really tell that you're actually rendering everything on your phone. And really the best part of it is, everybody's upgrading their phones year after year, so as you upgrade your phone, your game console or your gaming experience actually gets better every time. And for developers, it's actually a very natural model. Just like developing for a native Android TV game is actually fairly trivial once you've done Android development. Basically it's the same development platform. In this world, you don't have the added complexity of the HTML5 receiver that you're dealing with. You're really building your game and just rendering two screens on the same device, and we will take care of pushing it out. And again, when we're looking at the developers, Unity has been a massive model for developers to environment to develop games for, and we've built this Unity plugin that makes it absolutely trivial to do so. So remote displays really brings the ability to extend your games in a simple manner to the TV once you develop it if you're developing for Cast. So it's been good.
Yeah. So do we have game developers here? Any game developers? Oh yeah, a few, about the same as Cast. Yeah. Very good. Anyone have any questions you'd like to ask us? Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't quite know how to form this question, but what is the competitive threat to Android TV as to somebody like Samsung or Vizio who decides to have their own content that they embed directly into the device itself?
So the question was, what's the competitive threat from something like, between Android TV and other manufacturers that embed their own devices in the TV set? We believe in a healthy ecosystem, so it's not so much a competitive threat. It's like, we believe the best platform will win out in the end. And of course, Android TV is currently shipping in all Sony TVs, so all Sony Bravias are all shipping with Android TV at the moment, and that will continue to increase. It's nice to see these different platforms play out against each other, and at the end of the day, if developers move to a particular platform, that will make it successful, and other manufacturers will follow on. That's what we hope. But again, it's up to market forces. That's a bit of a difficult question,
But at the same time, I mean, with Android TV, we have several partners. At CES last week, we announced additional partners. So it's not, I mean, Sony is a big one, but there are another 5 that followed suit. And we see that as expanding. As a developers, I mean, you should target the platform that has the most compelling user for your particular application. And in some cases, you might need to target multiple platforms until things settle down. I mean, same as in phones, right? We still target Android and iOS, so this will continue to be even in the TV space.
Just a quick follow-on, how long do you think that will continue?
The follow-on question was, how long do you think that will continue?
It's a bit hard to guess that. And look, Android is a very compelling platform in general. Bringing it to the TV is definitely a huge step for that ecosystem. And maintaining a platform is it's not easy. We are committed to doing so. And we'll continue to bring innovation and stability to that platform.
And I mean, and again, it's not a matter of advantage versus disadvantage, but to some extent there is, right? In many cases, bringing your application to Android TV is not much of a decision if you've already got an Android, a phone application.
I'm asking this because as a former Logitech review owner, the first choice that you guys took at Android on the TV kind of left me burned because I wanted that because I wanted that Android experience, and now I see that Samsung and Vizio and others have stepped up, and I'm just wondering, as a developer, and as I tell my students, what should you build for? Having the mobile-friendly developer platform that you already have with Android, being able to push those APKs onto a device or build for that platform is very compelling. But there are other, the developers go to where the money is, and if Samsung can make it easy to go to all of their TVs and they dominate the market, then why wouldn't a developer?
So, I mean, time will only tell. I don't think it will be only one platform, to be honest. I think there will be multiple platforms that will stay there. But we are committed to Android TV, and you're going to see more and more OEMs and even a larger user base coming in this year for Android TV. So it will be compelling in terms, at least, of size. Is it going to be the only game in town? I don't know.
Again, as a developer, you probably have to, like I'm a developer too, right? So you have to work out where to spend your time. So if you do have the Android application already, right, it's trivial to extend to the TV. So that's not a big investment for already a growing ecosystem. If you've got a media consumption app, I would say look at Google Cast, because that gives you the installed base of Cast devices. There's like over 20 million of them out there, and it's continuing to sell like hotcakes, and those things will run on Android TV as well. So there's a really safe bet for like a media app. So again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're a gaming person, you need to come and listen to Khaled's talk next, because he'll go through a whole lot of stuff about how to actually build for gaming. And the remote display API, which we brought in, which we just spoke about, is a great way to get high performance gaming through those Cast devices. So again, horses for courses, depends what you want to do. But I mean, some of the other major platforms around, I mean, you have Firefox OS on TVs, you have WebOS. I mean, the choices are there and they will just all play out. But what's interesting about Firefox OS and WebOS, this is a slight deviation from what we were talking about, but both of those are based on HTML5 technologies. And Google Cast originally chose HTML5 as the platform to run on the Cast device for that whole easy to develop, because it's familiar to a number of different platforms and different types of developers. So, you know, it's the amount of effort as a developer, how much time you have to invest to get your app on that device, and we see both Cast and Android TVs being two fairly easy paths to making that happen.
Yes?
Yes.
I mean, the media criticizes having two completely different paths, right? I mean, how do you respond to that? Because it becomes confusing to the consumer, two devices that, from their perspective, do exactly the same thing from the same company.
Okay, so the question was that the media often says that we have two conflicting paths or whatever, and how do you resolve that? And the media say a lot of things, which is interesting. And we have two different paths in like Chrome OS versus Android, right, as well. So we have two major operating systems. It's a question of providing different options for developers because some are suited better for some style of application versus the others. And it's also a question of trying new things. The media has been saying, oh, you should merge Chrome OS and Android for years, but they've both become successful in their own right. So there's no reason that the cast ecosystem can't live alongside Android TV forever, really. It's not like you have to make a choice.
And we're still seeing that some people have preferences for one interaction model over the other. Eventually, maybe in 5-10 years, you will have one interaction model that would be the norm. But for the short term, at least, some people have preferences. For example, I definitely prefer to use a phone as my remote control, but other people in my household might prefer to have a physical remote control. So this is why we are offering. I wouldn't say they're competing; they are more complementary, and we are trying to make sure that we satisfy the larger number of consumers. But we are providing you with the tools and with, especially as Alex said, on the media side, you can write your application once and it will be available to both platforms. Yes.
You said you prefer to use your phone as a remote control, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Android TV app right now is very limited to lean-back navigation. Swipe to go everywhere, keyboard, and that's all. Are there any plans to open an API to offer more control to the developers for remote control of the Android TV?
Okay, that question is about Android TV, and Marge says he prefers to use the phone as a remote, and at the moment Android TV is more the lean-back thing with the phone, so are there any plans to introduce new APIs for different input options from the developer point of view?
So for the time being, we're focusing on making the lean-back solution for Android TV very solid. There's still some work to do there, and we are investing heavily in the developer tools to make it easy for you to bring up that experience. Also, while the usage on Android TV is increasing, it's still a relatively nascent platform. So we want to make sure that we have uniformity in the experience, to make sure that users don't get confused at this time. In the future, we might be looking at this, but for now, we're not.
I think we had another question up the back there.
Yeah, just to riff on this idea of the future of the living room, push it a little bit harder.
Good.
It seems that you guys believe TV is a part of our future, so I find that interesting because maybe it's not. However, I'm a huge fan of cast and what's going on, right? And I think you guys are in a push-me-pull-me situation where you're kind of like keeping one leg stuck in the 20th century idea of entertainment model, right? While helping us think about the 21st century.
Thanks. Very, very interesting question.
Do you want to repeat the question, or?
Do you want to repeat it?
Okay. So the question is about more about the future of the living room. That we're talking about the future of TV and whether or not TV will be in the future, and we kind of have one foot in both camps. One in the 20th century, with screens everywhere, and the 21st century going beyond that. So, what do we think?
I mean, you're right that the way we've been consuming TV is still very traditional. You sit down, just slouch in your couch and watch a broadcast type of interaction. We do think that with Cast we can open up additional avenues there because we're trying to bring in the power of the mobile phone, the power of the touch screen that is 17-inch away from your eyes, very engaging experience to that lean back, usually traditionally very one-way experience. So you can build interactive two-way application, two-way interactions with your users, and at the same time have very, very complex navigation, complex user experience that usually you can't get when you are 10 feet away or 5 meters away from that screen. But on the flip side, there are aspects of the TV that, while traditional, are still going to continue to be. The first is TV is social. And by social, I don't mean like social network, but it's more than one person experiencing that together. And we've built, at least in North America and Europe, we've built living rooms all around that TV, that you have a wall with a large screen and people are facing that and interacting and consuming from it. And that's something you don't get with a small screen. So there still will be consumption there. Empirically, though, what we've seen is when people who are traditionally mobile consumers, so let's say a teenager who consume their YouTube or Netflix on the phone or tablets, once they use Cast and cast that content to a larger screen, their usage increases dramatically. We're seeing increases between 30 and 70%, in some cases even over 100% increase in minute consumed. So that will continue to play. We do think that between Android TV and Cast and the ability to bring that mobile experience into the living room, we'll be able to give you as a developer more tools to bring more compelling experiences. We're not going to be bringing those experiences. We're relying on you to do that. We're the platform provider. So we'll give you the tools and then up to you to do it.
And the TV is one of the examples. If you're looking at it, really what we're looking to do is get you to consume your media, your games, in the best device in the house. The TV is an example, and Majd talked about, which is like the larger screen, which allows social experiences. Speakers are another one, right? I mean, if you're looking, yes, we can think of the future where everybody's got their VR headset in a corner and headphones and basically consuming their media all alone. But the reality is, at the end of the day, whether it's speakers or TV, we're just looking to enhance your experience and make it better and increase consumption time for all of your apps, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just the TV. It's really about if there was another medium where we could extend that experience where it would make it better, we would look at extending it that way. So,
I would posit, sorry, just to check in on.
yeah,
Okay.
Sure.
Go ahead.
One, that VR will be social, right? So it's not going to be just people dystopically sitting in the corner. So I think we have to have a bigger vision about what's going to happen, right? Again, we're bringing all of our historical baggage with us, but I think that's wide open, right? What it means to be a node in the network, we haven't even really figured out yet. Two, the idea that TV is connected to the distributor is the problem, right? You guys are helping to break down the fact that we can actually distribute that identity to what it is you watch, when it is you watch it, and you're talking about, yes, it's a better experience on the screen. I just want to keep pushing the living room, right? I want to keep pushing the idea that we don't have to keep thinking that that remote control that's got 40 useless buttons is going to be there in 2 years from now. Like, why? Right? And I think that we can push harder.
Absolutely true. I mean, the problem is when people talk about TV, sometimes they mean the physical TV, the physical screen, and sometimes they mean the TV service as your service you get from Comcast or Time Warner or whatever other provider. Definitely, we are trying to. Our goal in introducing the mobile aspect of the experience into the living room is to give more options, both to consumers and to content provider, service provider, developers, or whatever. So we want to give you more choices and try to open up that ecosystem. So let's continue working together.
Okay, so any more technical questions? We're got quite a few interesting questions there. I've got a question. Now we can have multi-room audio. So this is a real technical question. We can have multi-room audio with multiple cast audio devices. Mm-hmm. Will we one day possibly have synchronized video so we can have multiple screens in the house playing the same music video so I can have a multi-room disco party?
Technically, it's definitely feasible. We have the technology to do it. I don't think the infrastructure is there yet. And by infrastructure, I mean home infrastructure. Routers are still, Wi-Fi routers or even regular routers are still not powerful enough and not be able to handle that amount of videos flowing in the home. There might be few that would have, but until we have mass appeal or mass penetration of that, it will take time. Another thing is, so far, I mean, it sounds really interesting. It's cool. I'd like to use it, but we'd like to also understand how big that use case would be. How many people would want to have the same video playing all around the house? Yes.
We have one, two.
So currently we're focusing on audio, and that technology is definitely portable to video, and we'll be able to synchronize them. Actually, as it turned out, synchronizing video is easier than synchronizing audio because the latency and the tolerance of your ear is much higher than your eyes. So we can do that. We need to wait until the network is available.
Network can deal with it, right? Cool. Question is here. Yes.
Maybe I don't know. Can you scale the video on Chromecast to 4K?
Currently, Chromecast supports only 1080p. We'll see when we add 4K.
All right, cool. Okay, we've got probably enough time for maybe one last question. Okay.
I want to follow up on his question. I mean, there are Android TV devices that are 4K. Does the CAST protocol only do 1080p?
Okay, thank you.
The question was about whether or not the CAST protocol is limited to 4K because there are Android TV 4K devices.
No, actually, CAST protocol has no limitation on the resolution. It's a matter of the actual hardware being able to decode 4K, and then obviously you do need to make sure that your network throughput. So this becomes like people's home, whether their routers and their broadband connectivity is capable of handling 4K. 4K bit rates these days is anywhere between, at the low end, 10 megabit per second, and it goes up to 24 megabit per second. So you need to make sure that you can sustain that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks, Majd and John, for a nice insight into the living room. Anyone want to follow up with us? We have office hours will be from 3 to 5 over in the other building, so feel free to come and ask us all sorts of questions. And enjoy the rest of the conference. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.